An employee needed a date for Christmas, so her billionaire boss said, "Pretend I'm you." What started as a farce turned into true love. Secrets came to light, and their lives changed forever. A story of unexpected passion that will touch your heart. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and comment where you're watching from. The December rain drummed against the windows of the 32nd floor of the most imposing building on Fifth Avenue, creating a hypnotic rhythm that contrasted with the typical hustle and bustle of a pre-Christmas Tuesday. Marina Johnson adjusted her glasses and sighed, observing her boss's packed schedule on her computer screen. At 32, she had earned the reputation of being the most competent executive assistant in New York, a woman who transformed chaos into order with the precision of a Swiss watchmaker. Her brown hair was neatly tied in a flawless bun, and the charcoal grey suit she wore, purchased in 3 installments on her credit card, perfectly disguised her curves while projecting the authority needed to deal with executives who earned millions a month. Marina had learned long ago that to be taken seriously in that environment, she needed to appear untouchable, even when her heart raced with anxiety every time she had to enter the CEO's office. "Marina, can you come here for a moment?" Alexander Smith's deep voice echoed through the intercom, interrupting her thoughts. She grabbed her notepad and walked across the Italian marble that separated her desk from his office, trying to ignore the quickening of her pulse that always happened when she was about to face those honey-colored eyes. Alexander stood by the panoramic window, hands clasped behind his back, observing the frenetic movement of the city below. At 38, he emanated a natural authority that didn't rely on posturing or artificiality. His dark hair had premature silver strands at the temples, a result, Marina imagined, of sleepless nights managing a business empire that spanned 3 continents. "I need you to cancel my schedule for next week," he said without turning around, "and reorganize the schedule for tomorrow's charity event. The guest list has changed." Marina was already jotting down notes when her desk phone rang. She hesitated, looking at him for permission. "Answer it," Alexander murmured, finally turning to face her. The voice of her cousin Camilla exploded from the receiver before Marina could properly greet her. "Marie, you're coming for the family Christmas, right? But listen, Aunt Noosa is being a pain, asking if you're bringing someone this time. She said she can't stand seeing you alone anymore, that at 32 you should have been married by now." Marina felt the heat rise to her neck as she realized Alexander had stopped shuffling papers and was paying attention to the conversation. Camilla's voice continued, "Honestly, Marie, I tried to defend you. But the whole family keeps saying you spend your life working for the rich and forget to live. You can't show up alone again. It will be embarrassing. Camilla, No, this time you have to bring someone, even if it's that handsome doorman from your building. We'll be at Grandma's house in Brooklyn Christmas Eve at 8 p.m. And I want to meet this mysterious boyfriend you keep making excuses not to introduce." The call ended with a sharp click, leaving the silence hanging in the room like a heavy cloud. Marina closed her eyes, mortified. In 5 years of working for Alexander, she had managed to keep her personal life completely separate from her professional environment. Now, he had heard every word of that humiliating conversation. Family issues. The question came in a neutral tone, but Marina detected something different in his voice. A curiosity she wasn't used to hearing. "Nothing major, Mr. Smith, just holiday matters." She tried to smile, but the result was an uncomfortable grimace. Alexander tilted his head slightly, a gesture that Marina had learned to recognize as a sign that he was processing information. During the 5 years working as his assistant, she had mapped each of his expressions, the tense line of his jaw when he was irritated, the way he fiddled with the cuff of his shirt when he was nervous, and that penetrating gaze he used during complex negotiations. Exactly the look he was directing at her at that moment. "You know," he said, slowly walking toward the leather chair behind his desk, "I also have a similar problem." Marina blinked, confused. "Sir?" "The charity event tomorrow. I need a date." He sat down and clasped his fingers on the mahogany desk. "Every time I show up alone at these events, I'm bombarded by anxious mothers wanting to introduce their daughters, socialites looking for a lucrative marriage, and journalists wanting to know about my love life." The revelation surprised her. Alexander always seemed completely in control of every situation, immune to the social pressures that afflicted ordinary people like her. "And what would be the solution?" Marina asked, genuinely curious. He leaned back in the chair and, for the first time since she had known him, flashed a smile that wasn't business-related, a smile that revealed a dimple she had never noticed. "You need a boyfriend to impress your family. I need a date to fend off the gold diggers." Alexander paused dramatically. "How about we pretend for one night?" Marina felt as if the air had been sucked out of the room. "Mr. Smith, I can't accept." "Why not?" He leaned forward, and Marina realized he was serious. "It would be a fair trade. You accompany me to the charity event tomorrow, and I'll go with you to your family dinner. It's," Marina stammered, trying to find the right words. "Professional," Alexander suggested. "Practical, a solution that benefits both sides." "Insane," Marina finally managed to say. "You are my boss. What will people think? And my family? They will ask 1,000 questions. And then, how will we explain when it's all over?" Alexander stood up and walked to the window again, hands in the pockets of his dress pants. "Marina, in 5 years of working with me, have you ever seen me do anything without thinking about the consequences?" It was a rhetorical question, and they both knew the answer. Alexander Smith was known for his ability to calculate every move 3 steps ahead. "So, you've thought of all the implications?" "Most of them," he admitted. "Look, we are adults. We can set clear rules. It's just a temporary agreement." Marina watched, him in profile against the grey light coming through the window. There was something different about his posture, a vulnerability she had never noticed before. For a moment, he didn't seem like the billionaire CEO who effortlessly led meetings. He seemed just like a man tired of being seen as a trophy to be won. "What would those rules be?" she asked, surprising herself by considering the proposal. Alexander turned, and Marina saw a flicker of relief in his eyes. "First, this stays between us. At the office, we maintain our usual professionalism. Second, limited time. Only the specific occasions we discuss. Third, complete honesty about our expectations." Marina bit her lower lip, a habit she had kept since childhood when she needed to make tough decisions. The proposal was absurd, but it also represented a solution to a problem that had been consuming her for weeks. Since October, her family's comments about her love life had intensified, especially after her youngest cousin announced her engagement. "What if someone finds out?" she asked. "Your reputation, my career." "Marina," he said, his voice taking on a softer tone, "do you trust me?" The question caught her off guard. In 5 years, she had never consciously thought about whether she trusted Alexander or not. She simply worked for him, followed his orders, anticipated his needs. But now, forced to consider the question directly, she realized that yes, she trusted him completely. "Yes," she replied more firmly than she expected. "Then trust me now. We can make this work." The silence stretched between them, filled only by the sound of rain against the windows. Marina looked at her hands, noticing that she was trembling slightly. It was madness, but perhaps it was exactly the kind of madness her life needed. "All right," she finally said, raising her eyes to meet his. "Let's pretend." Chelsea Market had never seen a man in an Armani suit walking among the stalls of tropical fruits with the same ease as someone who had frequented the place since childhood. Alexander observed everything with a genuine curiosity that surprised Marina. She had expected him to feel uncomfortable, or at worst, condescending towards the popular environment. "Are you sure you want to do this here?" Marina asked for the third time as they walked through the main aisle of the market. The aroma of cured cheeses, spices, and exotic fruits created an olfactory symphony that contrasted drastically with the expensive perfume Alexander wore. "We could have had coffee somewhere more appropriate." "Appropriate for whom?" Alexander stopped in front of an empanada stall, watching the oil bubbling in the giant frying pan. "Marina, if we're going to pretend to be a couple, I need to know the places that are part of your real life. Your family will notice immediately if I know nothing about you." The logic was impeccable, but Marina still felt strange seeing her boss, the man who had closed billion-dollar deals with Japanese and Germans, pointing at an empanada like a child in a candy store. "Which one do you recommend?" he asked the vendor, a burly man in a stained apron who looked at the expensive suit with a mix of surprise and amusement. "Depends on your taste, boss. We have beef, cheese, spinach, shrimp, but if it's your first time, go with cheese. It's the classic." Alexander nodded solemnly, as if he were evaluating a business merger proposal. "2 cheese, please, and—" He looked at Marina for help. "Sugarcane juice," she completed, trying not to laugh at how seriously he was taking the culinary experience. "2 sugarcane juices, Mr. Johnson." As they waited for their order, Marina discreetly observed Alexander. He had loosened his tie and rolled up the sleeves of his shirt, a minimal concession to the humid heat of the market. His hair, always perfectly styled, was slightly disheveled by the humidity, and Marina found she liked this less polished version of him. "So," he said, leaning against the worn wooden counter, "tell me about your family. How many probing cousins should I be prepared to face?" Marina laughed, a genuine laugh that surprised her. "Oh, you have no idea. My Aunt Noosa is the worst. She works in a beauty salon and thinks she's a relationship expert because she watches Mexican soap operas. She will ask 1,000 questions about how we met, how long we've been together, when we're getting married. And what's our official story?" Alexander picked up the empanada that Mr. Johnson was wrapping in brown paper. "We need to align the details." Marina accepted her sugarcane juice and took a sip, buying time to think. "Well, you are my boss, so we can't pretend we met somewhere else. How about, you've always been attentive to me at work, but only recently have we started to see each other differently." "Romantic," Alexander commented, carefully biting into the empanada to avoid burning himself. His eyes widened as the melted cheese touched his tongue. "Wow, this is good?" Marina smiled with genuine satisfaction at seeing his reaction. "Incredible." He took another sip of the sugarcane juice and nodded in approval. "Why has no one ever told me street food could be this good?" "Because you've always been too busy with fine dining to notice," Marina replied without thinking, then blushed as she realized she had spoken too freely. Alexander stopped eating and looked at her intently. "You're right. I've lost a lot, haven't I?" There was something in his voice, a melancholy that Marina had never heard before, that made her temporarily forget about hierarchies and corporate protocols. "Everyone loses some things," she said softly. "The important thing is that there's still time to experience." They continued walking through Chelsea Market, stopping at other stalls as Alexander asked questions about each product with the dedication of an anthropologist studying an unfamiliar culture. Marina explained about Mrs. Johnson's cod fritters, the best place to buy, spices, and why the pastrami sandwich from Joe's Deli was a New York institution. "And your family?" Marina asked when they sat at one of the white plastic tables in the deli to share a pastrami sandwich. "What do I need to know about the Smiths?" Alexander was quiet for a moment, poking at the tomato sauce with a toothpick. "There's not much to know. My parents died when I was 25. Car accident. I was an only child, so it's basically just me." The simplicity of the answer contrasted with the pain Marina perceived in his voice. "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't know. There's no reason for you to know. I don't talk about it at the office." Alexander looked up to meet her gaze. "But if we're going to pretend intimacy, you should know that I have no family to introduce in return." Marina nodded, feeling a weight in her chest. Suddenly, the idea of Alexander dealing with her family's invasive questions seemed even more complicated. "They're going to love this, you know. A blank page for them to fill with speculation." "Let them speculate." Alexander smiled, but it wasn't a completely cheerful smile. "At least, this way you won't be the only target of the comments." They spent the next 2 hours constructing their fictional story. They would decide that they had been getting to know each other better for 3 months, that the first date had been coffee after work to discuss a special project, and that the chemistry between them had developed gradually. Alexander memorized the names of all the family members who would be present, their occupations, and quirks that Marina described with the exasperated affection of someone who grew up dealing with eccentric relatives. "My grandmother is going to want to know your intentions," Marina warned as they were getting ready to leave. "She's 83 and as direct as an arrow. She'll ask if you plan to marry me." "And what should I say?" Marina hesitated. "The truth? That we're still getting to know each other and seeing where this goes." "That's a good answer," Alexander agreed, "because it's genuine." There was something in the way he said that which made Marina look at him more closely. For a moment, she had the impression that he was no longer just talking about the charade they had concocted. When they reached the parking lot, where Alexander had left his Mercedes, the rain had stopped and the afternoon sun created golden reflections in the puddles. He opened the door for her, an automatic gesture that Marina recognized as genuine, not a performance for potential observers. "Alexander," she said before getting into the car, "why are you really doing this?" He paused with his hand on the doorknob, his eyes fixed on the horizon of buildings in the distance. "Because in 20 years of building this company, I've never had a conversation as real as the one we just had." Marina felt something shift in her chest, an emotion she couldn't immediately identify. "And is that good or bad?" Alexander finally looked at her, and Marina saw a vulnerability in his eyes that made her forget to breathe for a second. "I'm still figuring it out." Throughout the drive back to the office, as Alexander silently navigated the heavy afternoon traffic, Marina kept thinking about that answer. What had started as a simple charade to solve a practical problem now felt like something more complex developing between them, something neither of them was ready to admit or even fully understand. When he dropped her off at the door of the building where she lived in Upper West Side, Alexander didn't just say, "See you tomorrow," as he usually did. He said, "Good night, Marina," using her name in a way she had never heard before, soft, almost intimate. As she climbed the stairs to her 5th-floor apartment, Marina realized she was smiling, and for the first time in a long time, she was looking forward to the next day. The Plaza Hotel sparkled like a crystal palace against the starry December sky. Marina stopped in front of the marble bathroom mirror of the hotel, adjusting for the 10th time the navy blue dress she had borrowed from her cousin, the only person in the family who had a similar size and access to designer clothes. The silk fabric caressed her skin in an unfamiliar way, and the high heels she had bought that morning were already hurting her feet, which were used to the low, comfortable heels of everyday life. You can do this, she murmured to her reflection, applying another layer of the wine-colored lipstick she had specifically bought for the occasion. It's just one night. You've organized dozens of these events. The only difference is that this time you're not working. But when she left the bathroom and saw Alexander waiting for her in the hotel lobby, Marina realized there were many other differences. He looked impeccable in a tailored black tuxedo that accentuated his broad shoulders, and when he saw her approaching, his eyes lit up in a way that made her temporarily forget about her tight shoes. "You look—" Alexander started, then stopped, running his hand through his hair in a nervous gesture that Marina recognized from the office. "Out of place?" she suggested, with a shy smile. "Stunning," he corrected, offering his arm. "Completely." The main hall of the event was decorated with floral arrangements that cost more than Marina's monthly salary, and the guests circulated in small groups, speaking in hushed tones, while waiters offered hors d'oeuvres and champagne in crystal glasses. Marina recognized several faces from social media and celebrity magazines, businessmen, politicians, socialites, and artists that formed the New York elite. "Nervous?" Alexander murmured in her ear as they walked toward the bar. "Terrified," Marina admitted. "I organize these events, but I never attend them. It's like watching a movie from inside the screen." Alexander stopped and turned to her, placing a hand gently on her waist. "Marina, look at me." When she obeyed, he continued, "You belong anywhere you choose to be. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise." Before Marina could respond, a feminine voice interrupted them. "Alexander, what a wonderful surprise." They turned to find a blonde woman in her mid-30s, dressed in a red dress that probably cost more than Marina earned in 6 months. Her lips were painted in a perfect smile, but her calculating eyes had already scanned Marina from head to toe. In a quick and unsubtle assessment, "Isabella," Alexander greeted with professional cordiality. "Allow me to introduce Marina Johnson. Marina, this is Isabella Montenegro." Marina extended her hand, which Isabella shook with just the right amount of pressure to fulfill social etiquette, neither more nor less. "Johnson," Isabella repeated the surname as if tasting a fine wine. "How interesting. And what field do you work in, dear?" It was an apparently innocent question, but Marina detected the trap immediately. The honest answer would reveal her position as Alexander's employee, but lying would start the night with falsehood. "I'm an executive assistant," Marina replied, lifting her chin slightly. "Actually, I work for Alexander." Isabella's smile widened like a shark that had just detected blood in the water. "How modern. Alexander has always been known for his original choices." Marina felt the heat rise in her neck, but before she could respond, Alexander moved closer to her, his hand finding hers in a gesture that felt completely natural. "Marina is much more than her professional position suggests," he said, his voice carrying a tone of warning that Marina rarely heard. "She has a master's degree in business administration from NYU, speaks 3 languages fluently, and is the most competent person I've ever met." The information surprised Marina. She didn't know Alexander was aware of her academic background. She had briefly mentioned it during her job interview 5 years ago, but she never imagined he had paid attention or remembered. "How fascinating," Isabella murmured, clearly losing interest in the conversation. "Well, I need to find the Johnsons. It was a pleasure, dear." As she walked away, Marina released a breath she didn't realize she was holding. "Thank you," she said softly to Alexander. "For what?" "For standing up for me. You didn't have to." "Marina." Alexander stopped again, forcing her to look at him. "I would never allow anyone to disrespect you in my presence, whether pretending or not." There was an intensity in his voice that made Marina realize he was serious. For a moment she forgot where they were and got lost in the honey-colored eyes that were looking at her with an attention that made her feel like she was the only person in the hall. "Alexander Johnson!" A male voice broke the moment. "Finally! I thought you had become a hermit." The rest of the night passed in a succession of introductions, polite conversations about business and politics, and moments when Marina felt like an actress playing a role she hadn't studied adequately. But Alexander stayed by her side throughout the night, including her in conversations, translating inside jokes from the corporate world, and always introducing her with a pride that seemed genuine. During dinner, seated at a round table with other couples, Marina observed Alexander interacting with the other guests. He was charming without being false, attentive without being subservient, and commanded respect without needing to remind them of his status. But what impressed her the most was realizing that several times during the night he looked at her for approval or to share a funny moment. "Are you having fun?" he asked during a pause between courses, leaning in to speak in her ear. "More than I imagined," Marina admitted, "although I still feel like I'm pretending to be someone I'm not." Alexander was quiet for a moment, swirling the wine glass in his hands. "You know, I feel the same way." "How so?" "All these events, these conversations. It's all a performance, everyone pretending to be more interesting, more successful, happier than they really are." He looked around the hall. "At least today I have genuine company." Marina felt something tighten in her chest. "Alexander, may I have your attention?" The master of ceremonies interrupted the moment, stepping up to the small stage set up at one end of the hall. "It's time to announce the results of tonight's fundraising for the Children's Cardiology Institute." During the speech, Marina discreetly observed Alexander. His eyes were fixed on the speaker, but she noticed he was fiddling with his shirt cuff, the sign of nervousness she had learned to recognize. Impulsively, she placed her hand over his. Under the table. Alexander looked at her, surprised, and Marina saw gratitude in his eyes. They remained like that, their hands intertwined until the end of the speech. When the event was winding down and the guests began to disperse, Alexander and Marina walked slowly toward the parking lot. The night air was cool and filled with the scent of the sea, a welcome break after hours of breathing expensive perfumes and air conditioning. "Marina," Alexander said when they reached the car, but he didn't open the door. "About tomorrow, the family dinner." Marina felt her stomach clench. "Are you still sure you want to do this? After today, I would understand if you change your mind." "Why would I change my mind?" Marina gestured vaguely towards the hotel. "This is your world. My family, well, it's very different." Alexander stepped closer to her, and Marina could feel the warmth of his body even through the tuxedo. "Marina, can I tell you a secret?" She nodded, not trusting her voice. "This was the first time in years that I've truly enjoyed a social event." Alexander smiled, and this time it was a genuine smile that reached his eyes. "And it was because you were there." Marina felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. "Alexander, I know this wasn't part of the deal," he continued quickly, "and I know it might complicate things, but I needed you to know." They stood there in the quiet parking lot, the weight of unspoken words hanging between them. Marina knew she should say something, set boundaries, remind him about professionalism, reaffirm that this was just a temporary charade. But when she looked into Alexander's eyes, all those sensible words vanished. "I had fun too," she finally whispered. Alexander smiled, again, this time with a mix of relief and something deeper that Marina couldn't identify. "So," he said, finally opening the car door, "let's see if I can survive your family's interrogation." As they drove through the illuminated streets of New York towards Marina's apartment, both knew that something had irrevocably changed between them that night. What had started as a convenient charade was turning into something much more complex and dangerous, something neither of them was prepared to face, yet couldn't ignore any longer. Alexander's silver Honda Civic contrasted sharply with the popular cars parked on the narrow street of Brooklyn. Marina watched through the window as the simple two-story houses passed by, most with bars on the windows and small gardens where children played under the glow of streetlights. The sound of country music leaked from one of the neighboring houses, mingling with the laughter and conversations, echoing through the warm Christmas Eve night. "Are you sure you don't want me to drive?" Marina asked for the third time, as Alexander carefully maneuvered to park between a Fiat Uno and a motorcycle. "Marina, I've been driving for 20 years. I think I can park anywhere." He turned off the engine and looked at the house number 43, where colourful lights twinkled in the window and the green-painted iron gate stood open. "Is that the one?" "That's the one." Marina took a deep breath, smoothing down the simple blue cotton dress she had chosen after much deliberation. She wanted to look neat enough to show respect for the occasion, but not so formal that her family thought she was showing off. "Alexander, it's not too late to back out. I can make up an excuse that you had a work emergency." Alexander was already getting out of the car and walking around to her side to open her door. "Stop trying to discourage me," he said with a smile. "I'm curious to meet the people who raised someone like you." He had swapped the tuxedo from the previous night for dark jeans and a light blue dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his elbows. The result was a version of Alexander that Marina had never seen, younger, more relaxed, more accessible. "Just promise me one thing," Marina said as he offered his arm. "If at any point you want to leave, give me a sign. You don't have to endure anything out of politeness." "And what would the sign be?" Marina thought quickly. "You tug at your shirt cuff twice in a row." Alexander laughed. "You notice that?" "I notice a lot of things," Marina admitted, blushing slightly. Before they could reach the gate, the front door swung open, and a woman in her 60s appeared on the threshold. She had the same brown eyes as Marina, and a warm smile that lit up her entire face when she saw them approaching. "Marina, my daughter!" Marina's mother, Constance, quickly descended the steps and enveloped her daughter in a tight embrace that smelled of cheap perfume and kitchen spices. "And this must be the famous boyfriend you've been hiding from us." "Mom, this is Alexander," Marina said, feeling her cheeks burn. "Alexander, my mother, Constance." Alexander extended his hand, but Constance completely ignored it and pulled him into a hug. "No handshakes here, my boy. Here, it's all about hugs. Welcome to our family." Marina saw Alexander blink, clearly surprised by the warmth of the greeting, but he returned the hug graciously. "It's a pleasure, Mrs. Constance. Marina talks a lot about you." "Oh, she talks about me, does she? And what does she say?" Constance took Alexander by the arm, as if she had known him for years. "Come on, come inside. Everyone is eager to meet you. Marina, you didn't say he was so handsome." "Mom," Marina murmured, mortified. The interior of the house was small, but impeccably clean. The living room was decorated with an artificial Christmas tree, adorned with colourful ornaments and twinkling lights, and the smell of French toast and roasted ham filled the air. The sound of lively conversations came from the kitchen, where Marina knew the women in the family were putting the final touches on the dinner. "Everyone!" Constance shouted to the whole house. "Marina has arrived, and she brought Alexander." What followed was a coordinated invasion. Cousins, uncles, brothers-in-law, and relatives emerged from every room in the house, as if they had been waiting in hiding. Marina watched Alexander with growing anxiety as he was bombarded with introductions, greetings, and direct questions that would make an experienced executive break into a sweat. "So you're Marina's boss?" asked Uncle Richard, a burly man who worked as a mechanic and had permanently grease-stained hands despite just washing them. "She works hard, this girl. I hope you pay her well." "Uncle," Marina protested, but Alexander responded casually. "Marina is one of the most competent professionals I've ever met. She's worth much more than any salary I could pay." The response generated murmurs of approval, especially from Aunt Linda, who appeared from the kitchen drying her hands on a dish towel and examining Alexander as if he were a rare piece in a museum. "Handsome, polite, and praising our Marina," she announced to the entire room. "I like him already, but now come here, I want to talk to you." Marina tried to intercept, but Aunt Linda had already dragged Alexander to a corner of the room. From where she stood, she could hear fragments of the conversation. "How old are you? Do you plan to marry her? She deserves someone who values her." To her astonishment, Alexander answered all the questions patiently and even with a certain amusement. When Aunt Linda finally released him, he came back to Marina with a smile that seemed genuinely happy. "Did I pass the test?" Marina asked quietly. "I think so. Your aunt told me I can stay as long as I treat you well." Before Marina could respond, her grandmother appeared, leaning on a cane, her 83 years not preventing her from walking determinedly toward them. Mrs. Johnson had completely white hair, tied in a low bun, and eyes that seemed to see through people. "So you are Alexander," she said, examining him from head to toe. "Come here, I want to see you properly." Alexander approached respectfully and, to everyone's surprise, slightly bent down to be at her height. "It's an honor to meet you, Mrs. Johnson. Marina has told me a lot about you." "Really?" The grandmother raised an eyebrow. "And what did she say?" "That you are the wisest woman in the family, and that you raised 6 children working as a housekeeper after my grandfather passed away young," Alexander replied, and Marina realized he had memorized every detail she had shared about her grandmother. "That you taught the whole family the value of honest work and dignity." The grandmother's expression softened slightly. "At least you listen when she speaks. That's more than most men do." She paused, studying his face. "Do you really like her, or are you just playing around?" Marina felt her blood run cold. The question was too direct, too dangerous. Alexander could destroy the whole charade with a wrong answer, or worse, with hesitation. "Mrs. Johnson," Alexander said, his voice becoming more serious, "I admire your granddaughter more than she realizes. She is an extraordinary woman, and any man would be lucky to have her love." It wasn't exactly a declaration of love, but there was something in the way he said it that made Marina's heart race. The grandmother must have heard the same sincerity, because she nodded approvingly. "All right, you can stay for dinner." Dinner was served in the kitchen with everyone squeezing, around a table that was definitely not made for so many people. Marina watched Alexander trying to eat farofa with ease, patiently listening to Cousin Junior's endless stories about his job as a bus driver, and even laughing at brother-in-law Robert's questionable jokes. The most touching moment of the night came when Cousin Camilla, the same one who had made the fateful call, pulled Marina aside in the kitchen. "Mari, he's perfect," she whispered, glancing at Alexander, who was helping Aunt Linda serve the pudding. "Look how he treats everyone equally, as if he really enjoys being here. And the way he looks at you." "What do you mean, the way he looks at me?" "As if you were the most important thing in the room," Camilla smiled. "Girl, this man is in love with you. It's obvious." Marina felt her heart race. "Camilla, you're exaggerating." "I'm not exaggerating, just look." Camilla discreetly pointed at Alexander, who was at that moment talking to Uncle Richard about football, but his eyes were searching for Marina around the room. When he found her, his face lit up with a smile that made her forget to breathe. When they finally managed to say goodbye, a process that took almost an hour and involved more hugs, invitations to come back soon, and promises to keep in touch, Marina and Alexander walked slowly back to the car. "So," Marina asked when they were once again in the silence of the street, "you survived?" "More than survived," Alexander said, stopping before opening the car door. "Marina, your family is wonderful." "They're loud, nosy, and ask embarrassing questions," Marina said, but she was smiling. "They care about you. They genuinely care." There was a note of melancholy in Alexander's voice. "Do you know how long it's been since I've felt that kind of family warmth?" Marina looked at him more closely. "Alexander, thank you," he said simply, "for letting me be a part of this, even if just for one night." As they drove back to Marina's apartment, they both remained silent, each lost in thoughts about a night that had started as just another act in the charade they were performing, but had turned into something much more real and meaningful than either of them had anticipated. The General Hospital was immersed in the typical silence of New Year's Eve when Marina received the call that would change everything. It was 3:15 in the morning on January 1st, and she was lying in her bed, still wearing the black dress from the New Year's Eve party, when the phone rang with the urgency that only bad news carries. "Marina?" Her brother Rodrigo's voice was choked. "You need to come now, Mum. She had another episode. This time it was serious." Marina's world crumbled in a matter of seconds. Constance had been hospitalized 3 times in the last 2 years due to heart problems, but she had always managed to recover, this time from the break in his voice. Adaptações. Rodrigo, Robert, UTI. ICU, Dona Maria. Mrs. Johnson, Dr. Carlos Mendoza. Dr. Charles Miller, Avó Maria. Grandmother Mary, São Paulo. New York, tios, uncles, primos, cousins. Festa de Réveillon. New Year's Eve party, R$60.000, $60,000. Secretária executiva, executive assistant. Hospital, cirurgia, surgery, internação, hospitalization, medicamentos, medications, fisioterapia, physical therapy, benfeitor anônimo, anonymous benefactor, chances de sucesso, chances of success, avó, grandmother, café ruim, bad coffee, tia Neuza, Aunt Linda, Avó Maria, grandmother, Mary, Dr. Mendoza, Dr. Miller, Dona Marina, Mrs. Johnson, Marie, Mary, Alexandre, Alexander, Rodrigo, Robert, tio Reinaldo, Uncle Richard, tio, uncle, primão, cozinha, saguão do hotel, hospital lobby, sala de espera, waiting room, festa, party, mãe, mother, mãe, mom, mãe, mother, 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 mãe, In Dundee mother, my so me mother, my be daddy mother, my dee mother, my dee mother, my gee mother, my be mother, my dee mother, ten my gee, a mother be my the mother te my say, mother east my say mother, my say mother, the my say the mother, Mondays the mother, the my stay so mother, a my sto my mother. The money says the mother, but mice the mother, a mice and the mother, the mice is the mother, and mice a mother, and Mike says sleeps mother, mice be she's a mother, mice mother, mice is a mother, bis mice is the mother, and nice mice be she mother, in my share, your mother, we share my she's, we she mother, is my she's, miss mother, is my says, wish mother, and my she's mother, and she my shoes. Mother mine, 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 mother mine. Mother, my 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 Mother Dick says moin, dat is Mother Dick says moin, dat is Mother Dick moin, dat is Mother Dick says moin, dit is Mother says moin. The mother said je mooi, dus je mother says je mooi, dus je mother said je mooi, dat is mother says je mooi. Je dus is she's mother just je mooi, dat just is mother says je mooi, zo DJ's mother said just mooi. But je mother said je mooi, dus is mother says mooi, zo dat je mother says mooi, dus is je mother says mooi, dus je mother just je mooi, dus is mother just mooi, dus is je mother just je mooi. The mother says je mooi, dus is mother just je mooi, dus is mother just mooi, dus is mother just mooi. Mother says je mooi, dus is mother says je mooi, dus is mother says je mooi, dus is mother just mais, this is mother, this is 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 mais. Mothered my, mother did my, the mother did my, did the mother did my, the mother did my, the mother did my, did the mother did my, 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 the mother did my. The mother did my, 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 the mother didn't my mother, 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 my indeed mother, my 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 a mother, the mighty mother, mighty mother, mighty mother, mighty mother, a mighty the mother, mighty 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 the mother, mighty mother, mighty the mother, mighty the mother, mighty the mother, mighty the mother, mighty mother, mighty the mother, mighty mother, mighty the mother, my mother, my the 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 mother, my 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 mother, mine, mother, mine, what mother, or my, mother, or my, on that mother, or my, what mother, or my, or the mother, or my, or the mother, or my, on that mother, or my, on the mother, or my, or the mother, on my, what mother, or my, what mother, on my, or the mother, on my, on my mother, or my, on the mother, on my, on 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 the mother, on my, on 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 mother, my, on mother, my mother, my mother, my, on mother, my mother, on my. A mother, a my, 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 mother, a my, mother, a my, mother, a my, a mother, a my, mother, a my, mother, my 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 mother, this pain on your face. Alexander, I know this complicates everything, he continued quickly. I know we changed the terms of our agreement without discussing it, and I know you might feel uncomfortable accepting help from me, but Marina, I couldn't stand by knowing there was something I could do to help. Marina took a step toward him. Do you think I'm uncomfortable? Aren't you? I'm confused, Marina admitted. I'm grateful beyond words. I'm emotionally exhausted. But uncomfortable? She shook her head. No. What makes me uncomfortable is realizing that... That what? Marina took a deep breath, knowing that what she was about to say would change everything between them. That at some point in the last few weeks I stopped pretending. The silence that followed was heavy with tension and possibilities. Alexander stepped closer to her, raising a hand to touch her face. Marina, I know it's complicated. She said quickly, I know you're my boss, that there's a social difference between us, that we started this as a farce, but what is it? Marina closed her eyes, gathering courage. I think I'm falling in love with you. When she opened her eyes, she found Alexander smiling, not the professional smile she knew from the office, nor the charming smile he used at social events, but a completely new smile, vulnerable and hopeful. That's good, he said softly, because I've been completely in love with you for weeks. And there, on the balcony of a hospital, as New York woke up to a new year, Marina finally understood that sometimes the best things in life begin with the most innocent lies. January arrived like a whirlwind of subtle changes that completely transformed the dynamics of the 42nd floor on Fifth Avenue. Marina arrived at the office every morning at 7:30 sharp, just as she had for 5 years. But now there was something different in the air, an invisible electricity that lingered between her desk and Alexander's office. Good morning, Mr. Smith, she said when he arrived at 8, just as she always had. But now there was an almost imperceptible pause before Mr. A half smile she tried to hide, and a blush that crept up her neck when their fingers accidentally brushed during the exchange of documents. Good morning, Marina, he replied, and there was something in the way he pronounced her name that made her heart race, smoother, more intimate, as if it were a secret shared only between the two of them. The first week was an exercise in self-control. They had established clear rules upon returning from the hospital. In the workplace, they would maintain absolute professionalism. No one in the company could suspect that anything had changed between them. It was a sensible, mature, and utterly torturous decision. Marina found it impossible to ignore details that had previously gone unnoticed. The way Alexander stirred his coffee always clockwise, exactly 5 times. How he always loosened his tie when he was focused on financial reports. The way his eyes narrowed slightly when he was analyzing suspicious proposals. And most importantly, how he now looked at her when he thought she wasn't paying attention. A look that made her feel like she was the most fascinating thing in the world. Marina, can you come to my office? His voice, over the intercom, startled her on Thursday of the 2nd week of January. She had been organizing the schedule for the following week when she realized she had spent the last 10 minutes watching Alexander through the glass wall of his office, lost in thoughts that were definitely inappropriate for the workplace. Sure, Mr. Smith. She grabbed her notepad and checked if her blouse was properly aligned. Since they had kissed for the first time on the hospital balcony, a soft, hesitant kiss that lasted only a few seconds, but changed everything, Marina had been constantly aware of her appearance. Alexander was standing behind his desk, flipping through some contracts, but when she closed the door behind her, he looked up and smiled. Not the professional smile, but that new one that was just for her. How is your mother? He asked, setting the papers aside. Much better. She's being discharged on Friday. Marina approached the desk, keeping a safe distance. Alexander, I still don't know how to thank you. We've talked about this. He gently interrupted her. How are you sleeping? You look tired." The observation caught her off guard. It was true. She had spent the last few nights awake, not out, of worry for her mother, but because she couldn't stop thinking about Alexander, about what it would be like to be in his arms, about what it would be like to wake up next to him, about what it would be like if they could be together without all this complexity. "I'm fine," she lied. Alexander studied her for a moment, then walked around the desk and approached. Marina felt her pulse quicken as he stopped just a meter away, close enough for her to smell his cologne, but far enough to maintain appearances if anyone looked through the glass wall. "Marina," he said softly, "is this as difficult for you as it is for me?" The honest question broke down all the barriers she had built during the week. "More difficult," she admitted. "I keep wondering if people can tell, if it's obvious that something has changed." "For me, everything has changed," Alexander said, his voice dropping even lower. "I wake up thinking about you. I spend the whole day wanting to find excuses to call you here. And when I go home, all I can do is think about when I'll see you again." Marina felt as if she were melting. "Alexander, I know it's complicated. I know we're treading on dangerous ground." He took another step toward her. "But I also know that I've never felt this way before." Before Marina could respond, the receptionist's voice echoed through the intercom. "Mr. Smith, Mr. Carter has arrived for the 10 o'clock meeting." The interruption made them instinctively step back, returning to their professionally appropriate positions. Alexander ran his hand through his hair, another nervous gesture that Marina had learned to recognize, and returned to his desk. "You can send him in 5 minutes," he replied through the intercom, then looked at Marina. "We'll need to continue this conversation later." "Of course, Mr. Smith," Marina said, reverting to a formal tone, but her eyes conveyed everything her voice couldn't say. The afternoon brought a meeting with Japanese investors that extended until 7 in the evening. Marina stayed in the office organizing the minutes and preparing the necessary follow-ups, a task that would normally take an hour, but that she was deliberately stretching. When the last employee finally left and the floor fell silent, she was still at her desk, pretending to review emails. "Marina." Alexander's voice made her look up. He was standing in the doorway of his office, his tie loosened and sleeves rolled up. "Why are you still here?" "Finishing some reports," she lied, saving the blank document that had been open on her screen for an hour. Alexander approached her desk, and this time there were no glass walls or corporate protocols to keep them apart. "Marina, we both know you finished everything hours ago." She sighed, finally giving up the charade. "I didn't want to go home." "Why?" "Because there I'll be alone with my thoughts about you." The brutal honesty surprised her, but she continued, "And it's driving me crazy." Alexander was silent for a moment, then extended his hand. "Come with me." "Where to? Do you trust me?" Marina looked at the outstretched hand, knowing that taking it would mean crossing yet another line they had drawn to protect themselves. But when she lifted her gaze and met his, she saw the same vulnerability and desire she was feeling. She took his hand. Alexander led her to the private elevator that went straight to the penthouse of the building, a space that Marina knew existed but had never seen. When the doors opened, she found herself in an environment that was part office, part living room, with floor-to-ceiling windows, offering a 360-degree view of New York. "Alexander, this is my refuge," he completed, releasing her hand and walking to one of the windows. "When work gets too intense, I come here to think." Marina looked around, observing the personal details that humanized the space. Photographs from his travels, books that weren't about business, a guitar leaning in a corner. "You play?" she asked, pointing to the instrument. "I tried to learn in my teens. I was never very good." Alexander smiled. "It's one of The many things I gave up when I took over the company. Marina approached the guitar, delicately running her fingers over the strings. Maybe it's time to try again. Maybe. Alexander turned to face her. Marina, I brought you here because I need you to understand one thing. This place is where I come when I want to be myself, not the CEO, not the businessman, just Alexander. And who is Alexander? She asked softly. A man who is discovering that professional success means nothing if you don't have someone to share it with. He stepped closer to her again. A man who is falling for an extraordinary woman and doesn't know how to deal with it. Marina felt tears prick her eyes. Alexander, I know it's complicated. I know we come from different worlds. I know it could ruin your career if people think you're with me for interest. Alexander took her hands in his, but I also know I've never felt this way before, and I can't pretend it's not happening. I can't pretend either, Marina admitted. But Alexander, if someone finds out, then we'll be careful, he said. We'll set boundaries. We'll take it slow. But Marina, please don't ask me to pretend I don't feel this. Marina looked out the windows at the city sprawling below them, the lights beginning to flicker on in the darkness that was falling. It was her city, the place where she was born and raised. But from up there, with Alexander's hand in hers, she felt like she was seeing everything for the first time. Okay, she whispered. Let's try. Alexander smiled, that smile that was just for her, and pulled her closer. Okay, he repeated. And this time when they kissed, it wasn't hesitant or careful. It was the kiss of two adults who had finally stopped fighting against something they desperately wanted. When they separated, Marina rested her forehead against his, both breathing heavily. And now? She asked. Now, said Alexander, we figure out how to make this work. February arrived with the suffocating heat typical of New York summers, and news that made Marina's blood run cold. Isabella Montgomery was back from London. The information came through Carla, the receptionist, who had read it in the social column of the newspaper during her lunch break. It says here that she's back to resume her social life in New York, Carla commented, showing the photo of Isabella stepping off a private jet at LaGuardia Airport. What a beautiful woman, right? She looks like a model. Marina pretended to be focused on organizing Alexander's schedule while a feeling of discomfort grew in her chest. She knew Isabella Montgomery's reputation, an influential socialite, Alexander's ex-fiancée, heir to a fortune built in agriculture, everything Marina was not. Marina! Alexander's voice through the intercom pulled her from her dark thoughts. Can you come here, please? In the last 3 weeks, they had found a delicate rhythm. Professionals during the day, discreet meetings in the late afternoon in the penthouse, dinners in small, out-of-the-way restaurants where no one would recognize them. It was a budding romance, in a world made of secrets and caution, but which had become the most important part of both their lives. Good morning, said Marina, closing the door to the office behind her. It was a Thursday, and Alexander was particularly dapper in a navy blue suit that accentuated his eyes. Good morning. Alexander smiled, but Marina noticed something different in his expression. I need to tell you something before you find out from other sources. Marina's stomach tightened. What happened? Isabella returned from London. She called last night. Alexander leaned back in the chair, watching Marina's reaction carefully. She wants to meet to discuss business. And are you going? The question came out drier than Marina intended. I have to go. Her family is a minority partner in 2 of our real estate projects. It would be reckless to ignore that. Alexander stood up and walked over to her. But I wanted you to know, and I wanted you to understand that it's just business. Marina nodded, trying to appear understanding, but an insidious voice in her head whispered questions. She didn't want to formulate. Isabella was from Alexander's world. She had the education, the connections, the money. She was what society expected him to choose. Marina. Alexander touched her arm gently. Hey, what's going on in your head? Nothing, she lied. Of course you need to meet with her, it's work. But Alexander knew her well enough to detect the tension in her voice. Marina, look at me. When she complied, he continued, Isabella is part of my past. You are my present and, God willing, my future. There is no comparison. The words should have reassured Marina, but instead they only intensified her anxiety, because she knew that, regardless of Alexander's feelings, the world around them had its own expectations. The meeting was set for Friday at an upscale restaurant, one of the most exclusive in New York. Marina spent the day trying to focus on work, but failing miserably. When Alexander left at 6 in the evening, impeccably dressed and smelling of the cologne she had learned to associate with security, Marina felt as if she was sending him straight into battle. See you later, he said softly, passing by her desk. See you later, she replied, forcing a smile. Marina stayed in the office until 8, pretending to work, but actually counting the minutes. At 8:15, when she could no longer bear it, she gathered her things and headed home. But in the elevator, she changed her mind and pressed the button for the penthouse. The nighttime view of New York always calmed her, but that night, even the spectacle of city lights couldn't quiet her thoughts. She poured herself a glass of wine from Alexander's cellar. He had insisted she make herself at home there, and settled onto the sofa, trying to read a book she had taken from the shelf. 2 hours later, she heard the elevator arriving. Alexander appeared in the living room, loosening his tie with a tired expression. I thought I'd find you here, he said, walking over to her and bending down to kiss her on the forehead. How was your day? Productive, Marina lied. And dinner? Alexander poured himself a shot of whiskey and sat down beside her on the sofa. Exhausting. Isabella has some interesting ideas about our projects. What kind of ideas? She wants to expand our partnership, suggested some developments on the French Riviera where her family has properties. Alexander took a sip of whiskey. She also mentioned she's looking for an apartment in New York. Apparently, she's decided to move back permanently. Marina felt the wine sour in her stomach. Did she say why? Alexander hesitated for a fraction of a second, long enough for Marina to notice. She said she misses home. And do you believe her? Marina, Alexander turned to face her. Where are you going with these questions? Nowhere. Marina stood up, suddenly too restless to sit still. It's just that, well, you dated for 2 years. It's natural for her to still have feelings. And if she does... Alexander stood up too. Marina, does that bother you? The direct question caught her off guard. Should it bother me? That depends. Alexander stepped closer to her. Do you trust me? Of course I trust you. Then what's the problem? Marina looked at him, trying to formulate a response that wouldn't make her seem insecure and jealous. But the truth was that she was insecure, and rightly so. Alexander, have you ever stopped to think about how different we are, not just financially, but socially? Isabella understands your world in a way that I never will. She was born into it. And you think that matters to me? Not to you, Marina said softly, but to everyone around you, your company, your partners, society. To them, Isabella makes sense. I am a mistake. Alexander was silent for a long moment, processing her words. When he finally spoke, his voice was laden with an emotion that Marina couldn't identify. Marina, do you really think that you are a mistake? I think I am a complication, she admitted. A complication that you don't deserve to have. Alexander closed his eyes and shook his head. When he opened them again, there was frustration in his gaze. Do you know what the biggest problem with this conversation is? It's not Isabella, it's not the social differences, it's that you can't see what I see when I look at you. And what do you see? I see the smartest, most genuine, and strongest woman I've ever known. I see someone who has worked hard to get where she is, who takes care of her family, who has principles she won't compromise. Alexander took a step toward her. I see the person I fell in love with, not despite who she is, but exactly because of who she is. Marina felt tears welling in her eyes. Alexander. But I also see, he continued, someone who is so afraid of not being good enough that she's willing to give up before even trying. Try for real. The observation hurt because it was true. Marina had spent her entire life feeling like a stranger in worlds where she wasn't born, always waiting for someone to kick her out. It's not fear of not being good enough, she finally said. It's fear of hurting you, your reputation, your business, your relationships. I don't want to be the reason you lose important things. Alexander moved in closer, cupping her face in his hands. Marina, you don't understand. You are the most important thing. And then he kissed her, a desperate and urgent kiss that contained all the feelings they couldn't express in words. Marina melted against him, temporarily forgetting all her insecurities. When they broke apart, she rested her head on his chest, listening to the rapid beating of his heart. I'm scared, she whispered. So am I, Alexander admitted, stroking her hair, but I'm not willing to give up on us because of fear. Marina closed her eyes, trying to absorb the security he offered. But in the back of her mind, a voice still whispered that the storm was just beginning. And it was right. The following weekend, the first photos of Alexander and Isabella leaving the upscale restaurant appeared on the social media accounts of some patrons. And on Monday, the social column of the city's main newspaper speculated about a possible reconciliation between the most sought-after billionaire in New York and the heiress who stole his heart. Marina read the article on her computer screen, feeling the world begin to crumble around her. And this time, Alexander's reassuring words felt too distant to offer any comfort. The summer festival at the company had been Marina's idea. In May, when Alexander suggested cancelling the traditional event due to the tight schedule of real estate launches, she argued that the employees needed a moment to unwind. What she didn't expect was for the festival to become the stage where all her secret feelings would finally come to light. The property in upstate New York belonged to the company's oldest partner and was 2 hours from New York City, surrounded by native woods, and featuring a main house that looked like it was straight out of a movie about rural America. Marina had spent 2 weeks coordinating every detail, from the colorful bunting decorating the trees to hiring the line dancing group that would perform after dinner. Marina, you've outdone yourself, commented Richard, the CFO, admiring the decorations as the first employees arrived. It looks like a real summer festival. She smiled, adjusting one of the Japanese lanterns that swayed between the branches. She had opted for a light blue cotton dress with a small floral print, nothing too fancy but appropriate for the rural setting and the still warm temperature even with the sun setting. Alexander arrived when the party was already in full swing, driving his own car and wearing a blue plaid shirt and jeans that Marina had never seen before. The transformation from the impeccably dressed executive to the casual man was so radical that she found herself watching from the porch of the main house as he greeted the employees. He looks good like that, doesn't he? Carol's voice, the receptionist, startled her. More human. Marina blushed, realizing she had been caught watching Alexander with more attention than would be appropriate. I was just checking to see if everyone arrived safely. Of course, Carol smiled knowingly. By the way, Marina, can I ask you a personal question? Marina's heart raced. Depends on how personal. Have you noticed how Mr. Alexander looks at you? Like lately he's been a bit, I don't know, different when he's around you. Marina tried to keep her expression neutral. I think you're imagining things, Carol. Maybe, Carol shrugged. But if I were you, I'd be careful. A man like that, single, rich, he won't be available forever. Before Marina could respond, Alexander appeared on the porch, holding 2 glasses of hot spiced cider. Host of the party, he said, offering one of the glasses, you deserve a toast. Thank you, Mr. Alexander, Marina replied formally, aware that Carol was watching everything. It's just Alexander, he corrected with a smile. Today we aren't boss and employee. We're just people enjoying a party. Carol smiled and discreetly stepped away, leaving them alone on the porch. Marina took a sip of the hot spiced cider, feeling the warm, sweet liquid go down her throat. You did an amazing job, Alexander said softly. Watching the party below, the employees were genuinely having fun. Some were line dancing to the sound of the accordion player. Others were participating in traditional games, and the children were running among the adults carrying bunting. Thank you. I think everyone is having a good time. Including me, Alexander looked at her sideways. It's been a long time since I felt so relaxed. Marina noticed he did seem different, his shoulders less tense, his smile more natural. You should relax more often. I'm thinking about it, he said, and there was something in his voice that made Marina look at him more closely. Before she could ask what he meant, the music stopped, and the leader of the line dancing group announced that the traditional dances would begin. All right, let's form couples for the square dance. Don't be shy, it's tradition. Marina saw several couples forming in the makeshift dance area. Some were husband and wife, others just colleagues willing to have fun. Dance with me? Alexander asked, extending his hand. Marina hesitated, looking around. Alexander, I don't know if it's a good idea. Why not? It's just a dance, among colleagues. There was a challenge in his eyes that Marina knew well. It was the same expression he wore when he was about to close an important deal. She took his hand. The square dance began with the traditional calls from the caller. Marina had danced at summer festivals in school, but it had been years since she participated. Alexander, on the other hand, seemed completely lost. "Anarie!" shouted the A's. Couples were supposed to switch places. Alexander went to the wrong side, bumping into Marina, who laughed at the confusion. "Where do I go?" he asked, looking genuinely lost. "Follow me," Marina laughed, pulling him by the hand. Throughout the dance, Alexander made mistake after mistake, stepping on his own feet, going in the wrong direction, confusing the commands. But he was laughing, a genuine and carefree laugh that Marina rarely heard, and she found herself laughing along. "Swing!" The final command came, and all the couples were supposed to swing hand in hand. Alexander pulled Marina closer, his hands firmly on her waist, his eyes locked on hers. "Thank you," he said softly as they swayed to the rhythm of the music. "For what? For reminding me how good it is to have fun." The music ended with enthusiastic applause, but Alexander and Marina stayed still for a few more seconds, looking at each other under the glow of the lanterns. It was Marina who stepped back first, aware that some colleagues were watching. The rest of the night passed quickly. They dined on corn pudding and roasted meat, participated in fishing games and sack races, and gathered around the campfire listening to stories from the oldest caretaker on the estate. Alexander participated in everything with an enthusiasm that surprised the staff. Most had never seen him outside the corporate environment. When the party began to disperse near midnight, Marina was collecting decorations with the help of some volunteers. Alexander approached, carrying a stack of lanterns. "Let me take this to the car," he offered. "Thank you. I think we've managed to gather almost everything." They worked in silence for a few minutes, putting away the last items. Most of the staff had already left, and the estate was returning to its natural silence. "Marina," Alexander said when they finished, "can I give you a ride back to New York?" It was a natural offer. They had arrived separately, but it made sense to return together, since they lived relatively close to each other. But Marina knew that 2 hours on the road alone in the car would be dangerous for both of their self-control. "All right," she agreed nonetheless. During the first hour of the drive, they talked about the party, how the staff had enjoyed themselves, and small organizational details. But when they passed Kotia and the road became emptier, the conversation ceased, and a comfortable silence settled between them. "Marina," Alexander said as they entered the highway, "I need to tell you something." His serious tone made her sit up, straight in her seat. "What happened?" "Today, watching you organize everything, making sure everyone felt included, genuinely having fun." Alexander paused as if choosing his words carefully. "I realized that I fell in love, not just with the woman I share intimate moments with. I fell in love with the person you are in every situation." Marina felt her heart race. "Alexander—" "Let me finish," he gently interrupted her. "I know our situation is complicated. I know there are real obstacles we need to face. But Marina, today I had a clarity that I didn't have before." "What clarity?" Alexander stopped at the red light and turned to face her. "That I want to build something real with you, not just a hidden romance, not just secret meetings. I want you to be a part of my life for real." The light turned green, but Marina continued to look at his profile as he returned his attention to the traffic. "And how do you imagine that would work?" "I don't know all the details yet," Alexander admitted, "but I know I want to figure it out. With you." When they arrived at Marina's building, Alexander parked, but didn't turn off the engine. "Do you want to come up?" she asked, the invitation heavy with meaning. Alexander hesitated. "Marina, if I come up—" "I know." He studied her in the darkness of the car. "Are you sure?" "I'm scared," she admitted, "but yes, I'm sure." Alexander turned off the engine. That night, in Marina's small apartment in the Upper West Side, surrounded by the simple furniture she had worked so hard to buy, they made love for the first time. It was tender and urgent at the same time, a complete surrender that sealed something they could no longer deny or hide. Later, lying in the dark with Marina nestled in his arms, Alexander whispered, "I can't pretend any more that this is just a temporary arrangement." "Neither can I," Marina replied, kissing his chest. They fell asleep intertwined, and for the first time in months, Marina dreamed of a future that didn't seem impossible. April arrived with the first cooler mornings of the year, and a discovery that left Marina completely shaken. She was organizing files in Alexander's office when she found a folder labeled "Social Projects Confidential" at the back of a drawer he had asked her to reorganize. Initially, she thought about just transferring the folder to the new file without looking at the contents. After all, she respected his privacy. But a loose sheet caught her attention. It was a bank transfer receipt for $50,000 to the Education for All Foundation, dated December of the previous year. Marina frowned, curious about an institution she didn't know, and before she could stop herself, she opened the folder. What she found took her breath away. Dozens of documents revealed a scholarship program that Alexander had been funding for over a year. Young people from the outskirts of New York were receiving full assistance for technical and university courses, including stipends for transportation and meals. The selection criteria were clear. Low-income students with good academic performance who demonstrated leadership potential in their communities. Marina flipped through the papers with growing emotion, recognizing several of the universities and technical institutes mentioned. It was a serious, well-structured project that had already benefited more than 40 young people. But it was when she reached the most recent list of recipients that her world stopped. There, highlighted in yellow, was the name of her cousin Letitia Johnson. Marina's hands trembled as she read the details. Letitia, cousin Camilla's daughter, had received a full scholarship for the nursing program at NYU, including monthly assistance for living expenses. The 19-year-old girl, who had grown up in Brooklyn and always dreamed of working in healthcare, was getting her chance thanks to Alexander. Marina sat heavily in the chair, trying to process the information. The timeline was clear. The program had been expanded in January of this year, right after Christmas, that Alexander had spent with his family, shortly after meeting Letitia and hearing about her dreams and financial struggles. Marina? Alexander's voice startled her. She hadn't heard the elevator arriving. Why do you look like that? Did something happen? She looked up at him, holding the folder against her chest. Alexander was as dapper as ever, but when he saw the documents in her hands, his expression changed completely. You found this while organizing the files. It wasn't a question. Alexander. Marina stood up, her voice coming out as a whisper. Why didn't you tell me? He ran his hand through his hair, a gesture Marina had learned to recognize as a sign of extreme nervousness. Because I knew you would react exactly like this. What do you mean? How am I reacting? As if I had done something wrong. Alexander stepped closer to her, but Marina took a step back. Marina, it's a legitimate program. These young people were selected based on their own merit, including my cousin. Including your cousin, he confirmed. Letitia applied on her own, went through the entire selection process, took the tests, the interviews. She earned the scholarship because she deserves it. Marina shook her head, trying to organize her thoughts. Alexander, you don't understand. It's not about whether she deserves it or not. It's about you doing this without telling me. And if I had told you, would you have allowed it? The direct question caught her off guard. Marina knew the answer, and so did Alexander. That's exactly it, he said, interpreting her silence correctly. You would have felt guilty, thought it was charity, that I was doing it for you and not for her merits. But you did it for me, Marina exclaimed, finally finding her voice. Alexander, don't pretend it's a coincidence. You expanded this program after meeting my family. Alexander was quiet for a long moment, then nodded. Yes, I expanded it, after meeting them, because for the first time I saw up close how the lack of opportunities affects real people, talented, hard-working people who just need a chance. Alexander, Marina, you introduced me to a reality that I only knew in theory. His voice grew more intense. You made me see that my social responsibility cannot just be a line on the company's balance sheet. It has to be something real that changes lives for the better. Marina looked at the papers in her hands, trying to process the mix of emotions she felt. Pride, gratitude, confusion, and underneath it, all a rage she couldn't fully explain. Why didn't you tell me? She asked again, more softly. Because I wanted it to be about them, not about us. Alexander took a step toward her. Marina, these young people cannot know they have any connection to you. It would be unfair to the other scholarship recipients and to them. And what about me? Isn't it unfair for me to find out by chance that my family is being helped by the man I'm getting involved with? The word helped came out laden with bitterness, and Alexander recoiled as if he had been slapped. Is that how you see it, as help, as charity? How should I see it? Marina set the folder down on the table and stepped away from him. Alexander, you don't understand the position this puts me in. People are going to think I'm with you out of self-interest, that my family is benefiting because you what, Marina? Because you're with me. Because you love me. The question hung in the air between them. It was the first time the word love had been mentioned directly, and the timing couldn't have been worse. "It's not about love," Marina said, but her voice faltered. "It's about appearances. It's about what people will think when they find out." "I don't care what people will think." "But I do!" Marina exploded. "I care because I'm the one they'll judge. I'll be the one seen as the gold digger who seduced the boss to get benefits for the family." Alexander fell silent, processing her outburst. When he spoke, his voice was calm but hurt. "Is that really what you think? That I'm so naive that I would be seduced by self-interest? That you're so calculating that you would date someone for benefits?" Marina closed her eyes, feeling tears of frustration burning. "It's not what I think, it's what everyone will think." "Everyone who, Marina? Who are these people whose opinions matter more than ours?" "Society, your partners, the press." Marina gestured vaguely. "Alexander, you live in a bubble. You don't understand what it's like to be judged by your origins." "Then explain it to me," he said, his voice growing harsher. "Explain to me how I should act. Should I stop doing social work because it might seem like I'm buying your affection? Should I leave talented young people without opportunities because it might cause gossip?" Marina opened her mouth to respond, but realized she didn't have a good answer. Alexander continued. "Or maybe you'd prefer that our relationship be completely separate from my real life. That I keep my work, my money, my social responsibility in one box and you in another?" "I didn't say that." "You didn't say it, but that's what you're asking." Alexander stepped closer to her again. "Marina, do you want to be with me or not? Because if you do, you have to accept that I'm a man of resources who uses those resources to do good. And if my inspiration to do more and better came from getting to know you, then I'm not going to apologize." Marina looked at him, seeing the sincerity and frustration in his eyes. Part of her knew he was right, that her reaction was exaggerated, but another part, the part that had spent her life fighting to prove her worth, could not accept being, even indirectly, in the position of a beneficiary. "I need time to think," she finally said. Alexander nodded, but there was hurt in his eyes. "That's fine, but Marina, while you're thinking, remember one thing. I fell in love with you long before I met your family, and my social work existed long before we got involved. What has changed is that now I do both with more purpose." Marina grabbed her bag and headed for the door. Before leaving, she turned one last time. "Alexander, I need you to understand. It's not about you being a good person or having good intentions. It's about me being able to live with myself, knowing that the people I love are benefiting from my love life. And I need you to understand." Alexander replied that if you can't accept who I am and what I do, maybe what you feel for me isn't true love. Marina left the room without responding, but his words echoed in her mind all the way home. And for the first time since they met, she wondered if perhaps they were truly too incompatible for that relationship to work. July arrived with a cold rain that turned New York into a grey and melancholic city, perfectly matching Marina's state of mind. 3 months had passed since the discovery about Alexander's scholarship program, 3 months of tense conversations, painful discussions, and an emotional distance that neither of them could completely overcome. Marina had tried to return to the strictly professional relationship they had maintained before, but it was impossible to ignore the chemistry that still existed between them, the lingering glances, and the way her heart raced whenever Alexander entered the room. On that particular Thursday, Marina was finishing up the last details of a presentation for international investors when her phone rang. It was a number she didn't recognize. "Hello? Marina, this is Dr. Thompson from General Hospital." Marina's heart froze. Her mother had undergone routine tests the previous week, But the results weren't expected until the following week. "Doctor, is something wrong?" "Nothing serious, on the contrary. Your mother's tests are excellent, better than we actually expected. But I would like to talk to you and Mr. Alexander about a proposal." Marina frowned. "A proposal?" "I prefer to explain in person. Could you come to the hospital today?" An hour later, Marina and Alexander were sitting side by side in Dr. Thompson's office, the tension between them palpable but temporarily set aside due to concern for Constance. "First, let me reassure you, Mrs. Constance is completely fine. The surgery was an absolute success, and she is responding better to treatment than most of our patients." Marina let out a sigh of relief. Alexander, who had insisted on accompanying her despite the tension between them, visibly relaxed. "In fact," the doctor continued, "your mother's case has been used as a success story in our team, and this brought me to an idea." Dr. Thompson leaned forward with the enthusiasm of someone about to share something important. "We are launching a cardiovascular prevention program for low-income communities, free screenings, educational talks, medical follow-ups. The program needs funding and also someone who understands the real needs of these communities." Marina looked from Dr. Thompson to Alexander, trying to understand where the conversation was leading. "Mr. Alexander, I know about your philanthropic work through the foundation. And Marina, you are intimately familiar with the challenges faced by low-income families." The doctor smiled. "Would you like to lead this project together?" The silence that followed was loaded with meaning. Marina felt as if the universe was playing a trick on her, offering exactly the type of collaboration she was afraid to accept. "Dr. Thompson," Alexander said carefully, "would this be something official, with documentation, total transparency?" "Completely official. In fact, we would need Marina to officially take on the overall coordination of the project. It would be an executive position with its own salary, independent of the foundation's funding." Marina blinked, processing the information. "Are you offering me a job?" "I'm offering you a career. This project could be the first of many. Prevention, health education, support for families in treatment. There is a lot of work to be done, and you two would make a perfect team." When they left the hospital, Alexander and Marina walked in silence to the parking lot. The rain had stopped, but the sky remained cloudy, creating a diffused light that made everything look dreamlike. "Marina," Alexander said when they reached the cars, "can we talk? For real this time?" Marina hesitated, then nodded. "Let's go somewhere quiet." They headed to a small cafe in Greenwich Village that Marina had mentioned once. A simple place with worn wooden tables and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee permeating the air. When they sat at a table in the back, away from others, they could finally speak freely. "Marina," Alexander began, fiddling with the sugar he hadn't asked for, "these last 3 months have been hell. For me too. I understood your reaction. I really did. But Marina, I couldn't stop thinking about one thing." She waited for him to continue. "You said you worry about what people will think, about appearances, about judgments." Alexander looked up to meet her gaze. "But what about how you feel, and how I feel? Doesn't that matter?" Marina sighed, fiddling with the strap of her bag. "It matters. Of course it matters. But Alexander, you don't understand the pressure of always being questioned about your motivations, your capabilities, every achievement I've had. In life, someone suggested it was luck, or that I had help, or that I used my appearance. And do you think it would be different with me?" "It would be worse with you," Marina admitted. "Because this time, in part, it would be true. My family is benefiting. I could get a better position through our relationship." Alexander was silent for a long moment, then said, "Marina, can I tell you something about today's meeting?" She nodded. Dr. Thompson approached me 2 weeks ago with this idea, but do you know what the first condition he put forth was? Marina shook her head. That you agree to lead the project. He said he researched your academic background, spoke with people who know you professionally, and concluded that you would be the ideal person for the position, regardless of any connection to me. Marina felt something stir in her chest. What do you mean? He didn't even know we were involved. To him, we were just the philanthropist funding it and the competent executive implementing it. It was only when he mentioned your name that I revealed our personal relationship. Marina processed the information slowly. And what did he say? That it would make the partnership even better because you two know each other well and work well together professionally. Alexander smiled for the first time in months. Marina, Dr. Thompson wants you on this project for your own merits. I'm just the man with money who can make possible what you are already capable of doing. Marina felt tears welling in her eyes. Alexander, I know that other people's opinions matter to you. I understand that you built your career fighting against prejudices and judgments. Alexander reached out his hand across the table, gently touching hers. But Marina, if we spend our whole lives worrying about what others will think, when will we live for ourselves? What if it doesn't work out? What if people say I don't deserve the opportunities I have with you? Then we prove them wrong. Together. Alexander intertwined his fingers with hers. Marina, you have already proven your worth thousands of times. To me, to Dr. Thompson, to everyone who works with you. The only person who still doubts your ability is yourself. Marina looked at their intertwined hands, feeling a peace she hadn't experienced in months. Alexander, I'm so sorry for everything, for doubting you, for complicating something that should have been simple. You don't need to apologize for being afraid. I have fears too. What fears? Alexander hesitated, then decided to be completely honest. Fear that you'll realize you can do all of this on your own and don't need me. Fear that my world complicates your life more than it's worth. Fear that one day you'll wake up and realize you deserve someone less complicated. Marina squeezed his hand. Alexander, you are many things, but being complicated in a bad way is not one of them. They sat there for another hour, talking about everything they had kept bottled up for the past 3 months, fears, expectations, dreams, and especially how they wanted to build a future together. When they finally left the cafe, the rain had returned, but it was a gentle July rain that seemed to wash away all the tension of the past months. Marina, Alexander said when they reached their cars, about Dr. Thompson's proposal. I accept, she said without hesitation. But with one condition. What? That we do this right. Official contracts, independent oversight, total transparency. I want there to be no doubt that I'm in this position for my own merits. Alexander smiled, that smile that was only for her. I expected nothing less from you. And then, there in the July rain, on an ordinary street in Greenwich Village, Alexander kissed her as if it were the first time. And in a way it was, because this time they were kissing without fear, without secrets, and with the certainty that they had chosen to build something real together. 6 months later, Marina was on stage at the General Hospital Auditorium, presenting the results of the first year of the cardiovascular prevention program. In the audience, Alexander watched her with the pride of someone who knew he was witnessing the woman he loved shine with her own light. When she finished the presentation and the applause subsided, Marina searched for Alexander in the audience and smiled. It was the smile of a woman who had finally learned that true love does not diminish our worth. It gives us the strength to show the world who we really are. And there, surrounded by doctors, researchers, and beneficiaries of the program, she had successfully created and implemented, Marina finally understood that some of the best things in life start as innocent lies, but only flourish when we decide to live our truth.